Good. Yes? Oh yeah. English. Welcome everybody at the last part of today's conference. The next speakers, I find them to be very, very interesting. When they pitched the idea years ago, I thought they were really being stupid, creating a game every single month. Turned out I was the one being stupid, because when my team made one game that flopped, they made 60 games in the same time, with some genuine hits like Stacklands. A warm applause for multi-award winning collective Sokpop.
Hello everyone, I'm Ruben, I work at Sokpop. This is the Sokpop Fun Hour. It's actually just 20 minutes, so you have to hurry up. So we're a Sokpop collective. We exist since 2016. We used to make 2 new games a month, then 1 new game a month, and we made 100 games this way. And now we're on a new quest to make another 100 games, but until we die. So we got rid of the deadlines. So maybe you think, how do they do that, make a game every 2 weeks or every month? Well, it's kind of a trick, because we all work individually. So each one of us actually has 2 months and later 4 months to make something, which is a bit more manageable, but still pretty fast. And we still have a Patreon today. We have more than 2,000 members, which is quite a lot. Yeah, so okay, that's the introductions. I'll talk to you a bit about why we make 100 games, what's the philosophy behind it. Aran, who's not here, he's in Melbourne, recorded a video on the design of 100 games. Tom will talk a bit about making the graphics, and Tijmen will finish with talking about like the money side of things, like how does it work financially. So yeah, the philosophy of making 100 games. A question we get a lot is, why don't you just make one good game instead of making, 100 mediocre ones? Like all these comments are like, just get realistic, make one good game, or spend your time on making a project that's worth it instead of releasing trashware every week. This is the sort of indie games that give indie games a bad name, but they kind of have a point. Why don't we make a good game instead? So it's actually such a good point that we started out making good games, we thought, in 2016. Tijmen was making original hill farming, Tom was making Bearmont, and Aran and I were making Box Friends, which is an idle gardening game on your phone. And we thought, okay, just take 2 to 3 years, make a really good game, release it, and then we're rich and famous and stuff. So yeah, I'm feeling good about it. Let's start. Box Friends looked like this in 2015, like cute animals. Then a year later, maybe the animals should be more round. Another year later, started over again. Totally different mechanics. So I started over like 5 times by now, using a different engine. And slowly I was feeling the pressure, and it wasn't that fun anymore. And then in the end, we canceled it. And you can imagine how I felt. Pretty bad. But at the same time, I was finishing games, but they were just really small in game jams. So just take a weekend and make a really small, fun game. But you couldn't really sell it because it's really small, but still, they were games. They just weren't very expansive. So to quote myself, making a video game either takes forever or one really messed up weekend. So it seemed to be that there were 2 sort of games. My dream games that were amazing, would bring about the world peace, make me really rich, except they didn't exist yet. And the real games that were really tedious to make and not that great. They were fun, but, So why can I finish the small games, but not the big ones? That question arose in my mind. So yeah, let's look at the differences. Jam games had a fixed deadline, less time, but also less expectations. I didn't, it didn't have to be great. I could just say, yeah, well, I made it in a weekend, so whatever. And big games had no deadline. I could take as long as I want, but the expectations were huge. If you work on something for 2 years or 5 years, it better be something good. Like if halfway you find out, it's actually not that good, it's better to start over or to quit than finish it. So the approach is different. In a jam game, you're going to release something, just make it as good as possible in the time you have. And in a big project, you only try to make a great game. And that puts a whole lot of pressure on you. So you might think, okay, Sokpop just makes games and games and games until maybe they will make something good. But it's a bit more subtle than that. And I always like to illustrate this with a thought experiment. So say you have a ceramics class that bakes pots, and the teacher has a new week assignment. So one half of the class is divided into the quality side, and the other half is divided in quantity side. So the quality side just has to make one pot that's really good, and they will be graded on their best pot. Then on the quantity side, it doesn't matter how good the pots are, they're just graded on the sheer amount of pots. But by the end of the week, it turned out that the quantity side started making better pots than the quality side, because while the quality side was reading books about making pots and trying to think like, how am I going to make the best pot possible, the quantity side was just practicing making pot after pot. And they just got better at it, which is pretty logical. And another way to view this is, say you have 1 year. You can either make 3 games at 70% of your ability, or 1 game at 100%. And it seems tempting to go for the 100% because you'll have a really good game. But actually what happens along the year, you get better at making games. So your pie increases. So in the end, the last 70% game you'll make will probably be better than if you spend all your energy making just 1. So why don't you make just 1 good game? Quantity leads to quality. So for me, this kind of resulted in the idea that I should drop my dream of making Breath of the Wild and getting really rich and famous and finally happy, and start making what I could actually make, which was not that great. Like there was 1 comment, and I had $128 revenue from it. And I started to think, well, who's going to say that Box Friends would be this great game that will sell much? So just making games for me started like this. Make Yuts, made another game, a little bit better. This game was really bad. This game was cool, but not fun. And well, and slowly I started getting a hang of it, and like, okay, let's make some more games. Yeah, this was kind of like Box Friends and didn't sell at all, but I made it in 1 month and a half, so who cares? I made Pyramida that actually sold pretty well, and I was like, yeah, okay. And so more and more the game started to look like what I wanted to make when I started out. And yeah, now I'm pretty happy with where I'm at now. Okay, so I'm really tired now, so I'll give the baton to Aran, who recorded the video. Oh yeah.
Hey everyone.
How do we get this on the big screen? I wonder. Wacht. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I couldn't be there today because I am in Melbourne for Melbourne Games Week, but I would still like to talk to you a bit about game ideas, and specifically about what I learned about game ideas from making 100 games. By far, the most common question I get when I tell people what we do at Sokpop, making so many games, is don't you run out of ideas? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is because if you sit down for a week, I bet you can come up with a whole bunch of game ideas. Sometimes I do have to spend multiple days trying to come up with something new. And there's a few ways that we like to approach that. For example, sometimes we start with the art, for example. So you make a fun little art thing. Here I made like a car with some volumetric lighting, and then I tried to make a game around that. For one of Tom's games, he really wanted to have that vibe of like, you're a bounty hunter in a wet world, and that's sort of what he started building off of. Sometimes we do a game that's like a combination of two games. For example, for Lucky Town, Tijmen wanted to do a combination of Yahtzee and tower defense. Sometimes it's really tech-based. So for this game, I wanted to experiment with making an online physics-based robot game. And sometimes it's super mechanic-based. So for Stacklands, the idea was, okay, what if you stack things together and they make things happen? And then the game sort of started taking form around that. You'll see a lot of people say that ideas are worthless. And I think the reason is that there are a lot of them, and it's about execution. So if you have a great idea, but you execute it badly, you will still have a bad game. On the other hand, I think ideas are not worthless because they can help your game stand out and they can give you a guiding vision throughout development. I think what people should say is that only bad ideas are worthless and that good ideas tend to be worthwhile. So then the question is, what the heck is a good idea? And here are some requirements to what I think makes good ideas. So the first one is I want to make the game idea. So if I have an idea, but I'm not motivated to start developing it, that's probably a sign that the game is not going to be any good, right? Then there is I can make the game idea. We are a pretty small team. We have a limited budget, and so are a lot of people out there. So I think it's good to be realistic about what you can and what you can't make. One thing that's really good if an idea is giving you new ideas right from the get-go. So sometimes I will pitch an idea to the rest of Sokpop, and they'll immediately start coming up with a bunch of ideas that sort of tie into that original idea. Those ideas tend to be good, I think. I also think it's important that the idea is unique. That will just make your life a lot easier and will make it easier to market it and get people to play it. Okay, so now you have a good idea, right? It will be super easy from here. But a lot of times you'll find out that your idea doesn't work. That kind of sucks. But I think that the most important thing you can do is don't cling onto your idea too much during development, and you try to evolve your idea into something new. And I think that's just something that's bound to happen during development. So while your original idea is important, you'll probably stray off from it during development. We make many games, so we tend to write the ideas out, meaning that we do tend to finish them in some way or another. And I think this is a great habit. This way you learn a lot more also about what ideas work and what ideas work less well, instead of if you just abandon it completely the moment things don't work out. Have a great Dutch game day. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.
Okay, so now we go back to the presentation. All right, I'm Tom. I'm going to talk about creating graphics for a lot of games. Because we've made 100 games, and that's a lot. And because we all four work solo, this also means we developed a lot of different art styles. We made games that look cute and colorful, also games that look quite dark, as well as games with chunky pixels, and games that have outlines. And some of them are 2D, while others are 3D. And I think they look quite different, but people tend to tell us they look quite similar. And they even speak of a certain Sokpop style. And I wonder, where does it come from, the Sokpop style? So I think it comes from limitations mainly, because we don't have much time. And we work solo, so we have to make everything ourselves. So this means you cannot put that much time into graphics alone, because you also need to make gameplay and other stuff. So I will now go quickly through some basic techniques that we apply to create the Sokpop style. First off, there's ball plus line. Because with a ball and a line, you can make a character. You can basically make everything. These look like dogs, but they're actually just balls and lines. This looks like a sleeping character, but it's also just a bunch of sleeping balls and lines. And it goes on and on. And sometimes you see a shape and you might think, is this a line? And well, it could just be multiple lines, but it's still balls and lines. And why is it great? It saves time because you don't have to make 3D models. It's fast because of the lack of 3D models, you have less vertices, so it's cheaper to render. It's versatile because it works in 2D and 3D, and it always works. We also use procedural animation in our games. We don't create animations through specific software, but we create them through code, which means most of our animations look somewhat like this. It sounds complicated, creating animations through code, but it's actually quite simple. You can keep it very simple. If a body of a character moves, you can calculate the distance from the foot to the body, and then you define a target point, which is somewhere in front of the body, and then you just lerp that, so the foot basically tries to keep up all the time. And then you just repeat that for the other foot. And then you get something that looks like this, which looks quite alive and complex already, but it's just all based on this simple technique I just showed. And you can just add legs, and it will just work. So bulbous line and procedural animation work well together because you're already defining the positions for when you're drawing the balls and lines. So you can just as well move them in code to create animations. And there's also some other tricks that we use to create the Sokpop style. First off, a very important one, make it wobble. As you can see here, everything moves, and we discovered that making everything move makes the game way more entertaining to look at. So for this game, Zoopex, Tijmen made sure that even the small things like the grass is moving. And it sounds like a lot of work, but it's actually quite simple. The key is to draw something multiple times, and usually 3 times is already enough. So here we can see Tijmen drawing a rabbit or bunny 3 times to make it wobble. Okay. And as Tijmen always says, 3 times ugly equals beautiful. It also works in 3D because you can just move vertices to achieve the same effect. We also use outlines in some of our games. Sometimes you pick colors that don't really match well. This yellow sphere is disappearing into the background, and these colors are clashing a bit. But outlines fix this, because now the colors have to match with the outline color, which is black, and pretty much every color likes black. And it also makes the scene more readable, because your brain tries to find shapes in what it sees. So the outline really highlights the shape, so your brain knows it's a hand. Another thing I sometimes do is color clamping. I don't know if that's a real term, but I call it like that. Imagine adding a car to your game. You would have to pick a color for the car, and there are a lot of colors. It could be blue, yellow, or green, or anything in between, and this can really break your mind. So what I did for this scene is making sure every color snaps to a color on a smaller range. So there are only about 7 colors in this scene. And this is something you can do in a post-processing theater like this. So if we want to add the car to our game, we can just pick one of only 7 colors. So we just went from 10 million color options to 7, which is nice because when making a game, you have a lot of choices to make. And if you can minimize those choices, it would really help. Another thing we love is the XPR filter. I don't know how it works exactly, but it smooths everything, basically. So for this scene, I can just smooth it, and then it's not another pixelated game. But we're not bound to these techniques, since that we now stopped doing the monthly releases, so we might be able to evolve. And who knows what lies on the horizon. So what I think when creating an art style, try to apply effects that are noticeable, like outlines, or instead of stacking a lot of small effects, because that really pushes you into a direction and quickly defines how your game feels. And try to limit yourself, because it's better to focus on what you cannot do, I think, instead of focusing on everything you could do. Having fewer options helps. Okay, that's it. Quick timing.
Yeah, I don't think we have any time left, actually. I can go through it very quickly. So 100 games profit, we made 100 games. So we have a lot of data. We started off in college, then we did some work for hire, and then we released our games on page and itch.io, and 2 years later it's on Steam. This is what the revenue of our games look like on Steam. So you can see we actually have 1 good game and 1 decent game. This is zoomed in a little bit more. So most of the games actually didn't make a lot of money. The median is a little over 3K, which is actually quite good because we can see that the median game on Steam actually doesn't even make $1,000, which is kind of bad because you don't get your Steam Direct feedback. So that's kind of sad. So they are actually relatively good. This is what we made on Steam to this day. I'll just skip through this. We pay a bunch of people. Yeah. This is what we made on each platform. This is what the pizza chart, as we like to call it, looks like. Most of it is on Steam. We really like HCO, so we'll keep doing that. And Patreon is actually a big thing for us. But yeah, we don't calculate just how much revenue it makes, but we also divide it by the time. So you can actually see that if you divide it by the development time, a lot of games actually did quite good, and they broke even. Let's see. Oh yeah, so we have a lot of different genres. You can see here, this is how many games of each genre there are on Steam, and how much they on Medium make. So you can see that those two are really good, and then the simulation management and city builders also do quite good. There's a lot of sexual content, and you shouldn't make a battle royale. So that's that. And when we compare it to our games, we can actually see that the simulation management and city builders also do quite good for our games. So yeah, we should make a lot more city builders. That was our conclusion. Do we use this information? Not really. We only made 2 of them in the last 2 years. Why? Takes a lot of time to make them. You need a lot of systems. This is all the gameplay systems you need for a city builder. Oh, there they go. It's a lot. You need constructions, population, economy, infrastructure, environment, technology, landscape. There's so much to make. You don't have the time for that. It's really difficult to be original. If you're thinking about a city builder and you want to build a house, what do you need? Well, you need to chop wood, you need to mine stone. Every game does that. So we canceled a lot of these city builders, actually. And then we made something like this, which is a linear adventure game. And people love it. Sokpop does it again, Game of the Year. It's so cute. This game has a frog in it. It has 100% positive Steam reviews. But then it only made less than 5K. And if you're thinking about the dev time thing, it really did bad on all accounts. So why is that? People really love it. It's because all of our successful games, we think, have big YouTube videos. This is Ollie and Bolly game we made. There was this Billy Billy video, and then boom. There was Pyramida. 2 years later, a real civil engineer got overrun by skeletons. Boom. So yeah, the videos are really important, but not all videos generate sales. Usually the YouTube videos where the viewers go like, well, they're doing it all wrong, are the videos that do great. So for example, in Stacklands, you stack cards on top of each other, the stick and stone, and the viewer might go, well, what happens if I put different cards on top of each other? And that's when they buy your game and try to put a wood on a poop card. Yeah. So final thoughts. Management games and city builders do great on PC and Mac, at least for us. The content creators were key in generating sales for all of the popular games, and videos of non-linear games generate a lot more sales. Okay, thanks for listening.
I think we can do one question when the next speaker, if I can find her, Lucy. If you can set up. Okay, questions. We have a microphone that she's going to throw at you, quite literally. So there's a question over there.
Yes, thank you. So all of you guys are develop all your games all yourself. So that means you do all the art, all the programming, etc.
Can you talk something?
Yes.
Yeah, like that.
My question was, don't you guys ever worry about not being specialized enough? I'm also working on my own solo game, and in the industry, specialists are usually what people are looking for. How do you guys feel about that? Or how did you feel before starting this project?
I think we always wanted to make our games ourselves, right? I think you tried making a game with other people, but I think it's always handy if you know a lot about very different aspects of making game design, so that you don't draw a texture that's 4,000 by 4,000. You know, I think it always feeds into each other if you have different skills.
Yeah, a lot of it works together. Well, if you do want something specialized, you can always work together with someone else. So that's not a problem you can't fix, I think. All of us do have a specialization, even if it is a little, and we do help each other out sometimes. Like we would make mock-ups for each other, help with design, or Tom made a lot of music for the rest of us. So we do have a little bit specializations.
Yeah, thank you.
We have to round up. Give him a big round of applause. Thank you, guys.